Hi everyone, it's Hannah from Hannah's Decodes. Welcome back. Today I thought I would talk a little bit about the raven, and in particular I thought I'd talk about the Sydney raven. Sydney in Australia, that's where I live, and my main experience with ravens. And the Sydney raven may be a little bit different to inland Australian ravens and also European and American ravens. They I thought I'd describe a little bit their physical look. They don't seem to have as big a hooked beak as some of the American and Northern European ravens. And they are born with black eyes. So the babies have black eyes, even the ones that just leave the nest have black eyes. And then the juveniles' eyes turn to a kind of light blue. So that's a really interesting color when you see the juvenile ravens with the light blue eyes. And then as adults, they get these really clear, almost white eyes. They're sort of got maybe a tiny hint of blue, but mainly white. And so that's quite different to a lot of other ravens around the world. And they're quite striking looking birds, and they also have a very, I don't know how to describe it, maybe a melancholy kind of song. And yes, it's quite interesting. It's a very deep, I'm thinking, should I give you an example? Maybe you could look it up, because I don't think I'll do the raven justice if I do my own call. So very, very deep and long kind of cooing, and so it's a little bit, you could describe it as a little bit sad almost. But they're really interesting birds to look at. And I first became quite interested in ravens living in Sydney, and my neighbour's house has a very big garden, and up the back they don't use it, so we can sort of look over to their garden and from our kind of kitchen dining room and see what's happening there. And there was a raven in the garden that had its wing dragging on the grass, and I noticed that it obviously couldn't fly because it had damaged its wing, and its family would visit it daily. And it discovered, I think the raven realized there was a big pile of an old wooden fence that was stacked up, and there must have been somewhere for the raven to get a little bit of shelter under the pile of wood, palings for a fence, so it got a bit of shelter under there. And I would see the family come a couple of times a day and call it, and it would walk out, and each day it looked weaker and weaker because it obviously wasn't getting food or water. And it eventually, I didn't see the family after a few days, and I'm assuming the raven died because its wing looked very badly broken. So it was quite interesting watching this family of ravens visit this other family member who had the broken wing, and you could almost sort of feel a little bit of the mourning of the family. And as the third day came along, it was quite sad. You could almost tell it was a farewell. And even though birds can't go and give their family members a hug, there was a definite sense of a farewell of some sort. So that was one experience I had observing Sydney ravens. And another one was when my youngest daughter was quite young, I was sort of in primary school, and we're driving home from something, and the car in front of us hit a raven. And it's really rare, because they're so clever, ravens, to see a raven get hit by a car. And we could see that the raven sort of fell to the side of the road, and because I had another car behind me, I couldn't stop. But the family of ravens was sitting up in a tree watching this accident happen, and they all just cried out at the same time. And my daughter and I said, wow, that was just so sad. We could hear the anguish and the sadness in their cries and their song. And so I can remember listening to an Australian Indigenous woman saying, you know, if you can with native animals and animals that have been hit by cars, do the right thing and give them dignity and take them off the road if it's safe to do so. So later on I went back when it was less traffic, and I took it off the road and put it into sort of grassy bush area. We call a lot of kind of bushy, small bushes and shrubs. We call them bush. So I put it into the bush and just sort of paid my respects to it briefly and hoped it found its next journey with peace and harmony. So that was another experience with ravens. And then from that moment on, I just saw ravens everywhere. It just seemed to be a lot of, I don't know if I just started noticing ravens, but a lot of ravens, you know, sitting on fences, looking at me. And because I did, in a previous video, I think I talked about doing the Anna Breitenbach course. So she's an animal communicationist. And so she talks about communicating with animals through your mental capacity and consciousness. So I started, when I'd see a raven, I'd start saying, because also the Sydney ravens, when they're in the sun, their feathers are almost like rainbows. They have a shimmery greens and purples and different blues and stuff when the sun hits their feathers at particular angles. It catches the light of their feathers. And so I was noticing all these little things about ravens. And so when I would see one, I would compliment the raven and say, gosh, you're very handsome and beautiful, and the sun's hitting your feathers, and don't you look lovely, and stuff. So this was my communication with the raven. And I could see them almost stop in their tracks, because I think ravens, you know, are known as scavengers, which they do, they scavenge, but they also are hunters like other birds. So they do both, and both are an important role in the ecosystem of nature and stuff. So I really sense that, you know, whenever there's a raven around, people, you know, shoo them away or, you know, don't have much respect for them. So whenever I see these ravens, and I'd compliment them, or I'd say, you know, have a good day. I hope you get a beautiful, gentle breeze and you can get good food for yourself and your family. And it would literally stop them in their tracks. They'd be kind of doing their business, and they'd just sort of, you know, almost be looking around, kind of, you know, who said that? So it was kind of quite interesting. So then I went on to do a little bit of research online about ravens. And I came across, I think it was a North American Indigenous elder, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the name, but I think it was actually an old ancient story, and I think it related to a lot of North America. I can't remember if it's in particular one region or tribe. But the story was the raven was originally white. And I'm paraphrasing here, and I hope I don't miss too much out, but it'd be interesting if you felt inclined to go back and find the story and get the details. But the raven was originally white, and I think there was someone who stole the light for Earth and put it in the fire. It was a being that wanted the warmth of the light of the sun for themselves, so they had it in the fire, I think. And the raven saw the suffering of all the other creatures on Earth and decided to steal this fire, which I think was on a stick, and flew it up into the sky. And when it got to the area of the sun lit up and singed all the raven's white feathers and turned them black. So that was a interesting story that I thought was really nice. And then I started, and then later on I thought, I often do meditations in the bath because my body is very relaxed and it's quite easy to get into a nice still place in my mind and heart. And often images will come to my mind while I'm meditating. And so I did a meditation in the bath of a white raven, and I thought, well, perhaps I'll be the white, I requested to be the white raven going up to the area of the sun with the light. And so I did this and got up to so much light, and I just couldn't remember what I saw. It was almost like a sleep overtook me or something. So I couldn't really remember the process of what happened once you got to the sun, or the sun became the sun, or going through the sun. It just disappeared. But it was very interesting, kind of being, that white raven heading up towards the sun, or the area of the sun, and all with the sunlight and leaving it in the sky. And I did another meditation with a group of friends, and I just started to see this black raven in front of me doing this amazing dance with its wings and sort of jumping around a bit, and its wings would kind of curve in, and it was really interesting. And I sort of got closer to it, and it got closer to me, and then suddenly the raven was in my heart. It was quite interesting. I felt this kind of little piercing in my heart. And I think I've talked a bit about, I'm very cautious about energies and becoming a partner or inviting energies into my heart. So I was a little bit shocked that this energy went inside of me into my heart area. I was kind of like, I don't know if this is what I actually want or is good. But anyway, it seemed pretty harmless at the time, and I just sat with it. And from then on, I did quite a lot of meditations with the raven, being a raven, and looking at how they interact dimensionally. And I got this feeling that a lot of ravens, because of their, it seemed like a relationship with their story of the sun, they carry light. And so, and it's almost the opposite of what a lot of Westerners believe, that they carry a lot of darkness, or they're related to witches or dark magic, or, I think there's good witches. I don't know many witches, but, perhaps I was a good witch or a bad witch in a previous life. But anyway, people tend to have a kind of negative image of ravens. And I really got a sense with these meditations that they hold a lot of light, and they often live in areas that need a balance of harmonic energy and more light to come into that area. So I thought that was really interesting. What else was I going to say? So I just thought I would talk about the raven and my experiences with the raven. And even to this day, I walk on a beach. I try and do that a few times a week. And there's a flock of ravens there, and you often don't think you'll see ravens there. And I'm noticing recently they're not as around as much. So I kind of think, that I feel like the energy is shifting in many places, and there's perhaps more light energy coming into our earth, and they perhaps don't require to have their healing energy in a particular place, and perhaps they're freed up to just go and do their thing wherever they want. But I think consciously they have a choice, to do their energy work or not. So I think that's it. All about the raven, and in particular the Sydney raven, but I think it crosses over to the ravens all over the world. So I think that's it. And I hope to see you next time. And if you'd like to, please like, share, and subscribe. Okay, thank you. Bye.